Okay, so hello all. I welcome you all to the next episode of Entrepreneur Speak series from ECEL of IMT Ghaziabad. Today with us, we have Catapult founder and early stage startup investor Satish Kataria. Satish, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you, sir. Now, a quick introduction of Satish. Satish is an alum of SCMHRD Pune 1998-2000 batch with a total industry experience of 20 years in various domains including public relations, brand management, and private equity venture capitalist investment management. Satish has always been able and keen to assist startups. He actively pursues evolving funding mechanisms globally. Satish has been credited with the introduction of crowdfunding in India. Continuing his endeavor to enable talented individuals across various domains to get funding and resources, he founded Catapult, which in short span has become the fastest growing crowdfunding platform in India. With this, I'll start with my first question here, Satish. Satish, what
Sure.
is your story? What experiences and learnings led you to become an entrepreneurial coach, a mentor, and an investor?
Sure. I think it's difficult to kind of consolidate a 20-year story into 20 minutes,
Right.
but I will try to kind of restrict to the main points. I think it's been one hell of a journey and kind of a very interesting roller coaster ride all across these years. So uh, and obviously there have been a few interesting learnings along the way, right? To start off, I think I started my career after passing out from SMHRT Pune into the world of PR and brand communication. And indeed, it was. I think I was the only one in the batch who took a job in the PR field because all the others were kind of taking jobs in typical sales and marketing functions, right?
Mhm.
And I was the only one who kind of took a profile in that because I think I always believed that I was somehow good in writing and being able to communicate myself, right?
Mhm.
And then once I entered the PR world, it was a very exciting journey for me. I worked in that space for almost 8 years down the line, working with two leading PR firms as well as working with Apollo Tires for about 3 years and kind of handling the entire brand communication. So I had experience both from a agency and a corporate side,
Right.
right? And but then after 8 years of marketing, I think I started to feel a bit saturated
Mhm.
and wanted to kind of start to look out what more is there for me to do. So I think that is what my first learning has always been, that I always tell people that you should never stop at just doing one thing. There are always so many opportunities, and it always pays that if you can keep challenging yourself, try to do keep doing new things, try to learn a lot of new things, because that is how you always upskill yourself, and that is how you can know what your true potential is, right?
Mhm.
As we all know that the true success and true growth always lie in areas which are beyond your comfort zones, right? So always try to push yourself. The moment you get into a comfort zone, try to push out of it, because that is how you will grow. Otherwise you will just kind of saturate there. So
Mhm.
that is what happened to me, not just once, but I think multiple times along the journey. And I think that is one learning which I really used to keep doing a lot of new things in my life. So as I said, when I started feeling bored, and in about 8 years in marketing, I decided to switch gears and moved on totally to the new side, which is funding and finance.
Mhm.
Though I had no prior experience in finance management, I'm not a qualified CA or CFA as such. But then, just because I was keen in that space, as they say, if you are keen to make something happen, the universe conspires to make it happen for you.
Right.
Right. So that's been my second learning, which is this law of attraction. That if you really believe in something with a good intent, it will always happen. You have to just give it some time and just be a little bit patient towards getting it. So I got this opportunity to kind of join in a venture capital fund, a real estate fund, which was into the space of real estate investments, right?
Mhm.
And they were looking out for someone to head their investor relations role, and that is where they needed someone from a communication background.
Mhm.
So that gave me an opportunity to get into a funding platform and a funding business. And while I was there, then I learned the entire ropes of how a fund actually works, uh, what all metrics do one has to look at when they're making an investment call, how to convince investors, how to get partners on board who can do fundraising for you. So I remember that indeed, few months down the line, I kind of became the only pivot in the whole organization handling all the investor queries. And even working with a lot of institutional investors to raise funds for the organization as such. And we ended up raising almost 800 crores for the first domestic real estate fund through partnership with a lot of wealth partners and wealth managers, right? I'm not saying that I'm the only one who studied it with that. Obviously, the whole team was working with it, but it was a very interesting and a very steep learning journey for me. So that happened, and then I worked with them for about 2 years, and then there was this again new thing in town was Religare at that time was launching India's first fund which would invest into films and media, right? This was one of the India's first asset class kind of a structured product investing into something which is very unpredictable, such as films. So I kind of again took that opportunity and proactively went to Religare and said that I want to work with you guys for this. So I joined them as senior vice president to head that Religare Media Fund. We did very interesting things out there. We tried to build a mathematical model of how to invest in films, which sometimes worked, sometimes did not work.
Right.
But it was again a learning, a very interesting learning for us. And so at that time, this was in 2010. I was also getting interested to understand the whole startup ecosystem because that was the time when Flipkart had just done their few initial rounds, the first few rounds. The company had just been formed, and I think it was already in existence for about 3-4 years. They were going beyond books now, so they were getting noticed as such. And a whole angel investment scenario and angel investments ecosystem was getting built in the country, right? So at that time, I got on to a vision that if India has to become an entrepreneurial hub and it really has to grow big, right? It cannot just depend on few hundred angel investors. There has to be a lot more, because if we have to become a Silicon Valley wherein we have lakhs of people, with a kind of risk appetite investing into startups, we cannot just do with few hundred or even few thousand investors in the country. So with that thought, I started looking out on what could be the new models that can be brought in and what is happening in the Western world, which is more evolved when it comes to funding models. So that is where I came across this whole beast of crowdfunding, which was very rapidly emerging out as a alternative funding mechanism. And again, as I said, if you set your mind on something and work out it with full intention, things will roll out. So that is what happened. I happened to find few friends who decided to support me to bring this crowdfunding concept into Indian market. And I also found a few partners, or let me say a platform which was based out of Europe, to come and talk with us and bring their technology into India with us. So with that, we launched what was called as India's first crowdfunding platform for startups way back in 2010, and this was called as Grow VC India, right? So we launched with a lot of bang, a lot of PR around it. It created a lot of flutter. I got a lot of support from angel networks, and that is how my connection with those angel investors became very strong at that time. Right, but again, 1 year down the line, I thought what was happening was, I just realized that maybe the idea of crowdfunding itself was slightly beyond its time for a market like India. Because India at that time, startups was just a very emerging asset class. Not many people knew what startup investment was all about, how to make the right investments, what are the kind of risks which are involved, right? So while I was getting support from angel investors, which are qualified investors working in this direction, I was not getting support from common people. which was the whole reason of getting into crowdfunding in the first place. So then at that time, I think I decided to kind of take a break and call it quits, and maybe give it some more time. So I think that's the second lesson which I got there, that sometimes things will go beyond your control, right? And you should know that when is the right time to pursue and when is the right time to quit, right? It's not that you should never quit. There are times when you have to quit, not just because you want to leave it totally, because maybe you want to go a step back, to understand things, to learn things, to maybe wait for the right time, and then again go back at it, right? So that was the decision that I took at that time. While we had invested a lot of money in building the brand, but I decided to kind of take a break, and and then for next 2 years, uh, I work with Cyber Media Group, which is the publications major which publish magazines like Data Quest, PC Quest. So they also used to have this magazine called Dare, DARE, which was at that time India's first magazine focused on startups and entrepreneurs, and it was a print magazine at that time. So I was, so I decided to work with them as a consulting editor with them, and I was also working with Pradeep Gupta, who was the founder of Cyber Media, to kind of assist his personal investment into startups, right? So I worked with them for another year and a half, and then, but again, since my uh, first love was crowdfunding. So by 2013, I thought that let me now maybe give it a try. Maybe the time has come to give it a try again. So with that, I again launched myself into crowdfunding space as Catapult, which was my second crowdfunding venture. And this time, I think I had my learnings from my first venture. So we did not go for example, we did not go for equity crowdfunding model, and we went for reward-based crowdfunding model. And we and then so I again brought out the entire team. We brought out a lot of investors, and so we kind of focused on doing reward-based crowdfunding for startups, right? So I pursued that for another about 5 years. We did a lot of interesting things in those 5 years, eventually raising about 4 crores for about 100 plus startups from amongst a community of almost 15,000 people, right? Now, I understand that amount is not big if I look at in a overall funding scenario, but understand that this is a reward-based crowdfunding. This is not equity-based crowdfunding. So when people were giving money, they were giving money because they would expect nothing in return, almost nothing in return, right? So that's a different model. And also, unfortunately, in India, regulations were not right for crowdfunding, for startup-based crowdfunding. Though SEBI came out with a white paper for launching equity-based crowdfunding in India way back in 2014, for whatever reasons best known to them, they never pursued that. While the whole world opened up crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding and made that a legal structure, in India we still do not have a legal structure for equity crowdfunding, unfortunately, right? So anyway, we pursued that for 5 years. We got a lot of interesting partners on board, including Economic Times, Times of India Group. We did a lot of interesting pan-India, first time ever crowdfunding backed hunts for startups. I remember an interesting event which we did was this was in Kolkata, wherein we actually conducted an offline crowdfunding meet between startups and investors. So we took about 15 startup founders and a handful of investors on a cruise ship in evening, and almost till 5 hours we were in middle of a sea, in a river, and making deals happen. So that was a very interesting experience, very unique experience, which neither those founders, neither those investors had ever felt. I mean, there was no other choice. If they will not invest in a startup, they have to just jump in. So that was interesting, and we got a lot of media visibility also for that. Then and then I think in between there were also some other learnings. For example, during those 5 years, I almost had 3 co-founders joining me and leaving me for whatever reasons, right? And I think that made me realize that every person, eventually have their own path, right? You cannot expect that person will also, totally stick with you. I mean, there are people obviously who will go with you the whole journey, but I think after a while you have to understand that your passion and your co-founder's passion may not meet totally. You have to just let go. You have to just see that, okay, what's next that's coming for you. There could be other people with other skill sets who may want to join you at a different level of your journey. So that again was a very interesting learning that I had. There was other interesting learnings. For example, I remember that when we were looking to raise our first funds with Catapult, and almost a lot of interesting angel investors had decided to invest in us. And just at that time, my first co-founder decided to kind of throw in the towel. So it became very tricky because if my co-founder would go, so I would remain the only founder. And normally investors do not invest into single founder startups because it's quite tricky in that way, right? But having said that, I think I will always be grateful for my investors who, despite knowing the fact that I will be only a single founder in my whole platform, they still decided to trust in me, and they kind of gave me the funds to proceed ahead on that journey. Which is I think a very humbling experience. I think that is again something very true. Entrepreneurship is a very, very humbling experience, and I think it teaches you a lot internally, maybe not so much externally, right? Money and success are different things, but I think what entrepreneurship makes you as a man is something which is very different. You cannot learn those things when you're just working for someone else. You have to experience them to learn them, right? So that was few learning, and then in 2017, I decided to kind of exit out of that business because I wanted to kind of work on some other areas also. So there was a media group which was interested to kind of take a majority stake in Catapult. So they decided to kind of acquire the team, and so I kind of got my partial exit. And then following that, for next year and a half, I worked as an entrepreneur in residence with two accelerators. One of them was Zone Startups, and one of them was the Jarvis Accelerator, which was founded by a Singapore-based team. And I kind of again work with startups, help them in their funding strategies, help them in their go-to-market strategies. And then about year and a half back, I joined Viridian Group as they were coming up with a new Category 1 AIF fund to be investing into early stage startups. So I kind of joined them as investment head and one of the key advisors. So I think that's been my journey, and over last 10 years, since I have been in this early stage startup ecosystem, I must have helped about 100 plus entrepreneurs and founders, especially at the early stage, kind of work with them on their initial journey. So right from founders like Deep of PSafe or Zomato, so all these entrepreneurs grew in front of me. I remember talking to them, interacting with them, understanding their problems, suggesting them my solutions, and helping them to take that growth path. So that has been the journey, and yeah, I think that's, and I think I still have a lot more to learn.
Right. Very well said, Satish. So talking about your investment part, and since you are also the investment head now, so what is your
Yeah.
selection criteria to the early stage startups?
So, so as a fund philosophy for Viridian Answer Fund, we normally invest into revenue-making startups, right? The startups which are already gone beyond their proof of concept stage, and they may be requiring funds to now kind of grow to a next stage, right? They would have already bootstrapped, got their product market fit done, and now are looking for funds to grow to a next stage. So that is where we invest into. We invest into early stage startups. We are a domain agnostic fund. So what we look out for essentially are two or three things. One obviously is the team. right? Because I think eventually in any early stage startup, a team becomes a very key ingredient of how long your startup will run. Because again, as I said, ideas may change. You may need to pivot a lot of times. But if your team has the right kind of skill set, right, and right kind of attitude, you will continue to make it run. Otherwise, a startup would fail anytime, right? Ultimately, a startup depends on how strong your founders are, especially in early stages,
Mhm.
right? So team is is one of the important factors. Second, obviously, is we look at their financial modeling,
Mhm.
right? Again, when I say financial modeling, I do not mean that exact numbers, but I do look at the kind of assumptions that they have made.
Mhm.
I do look at the fact that whether they have been able to balance their business plan with their financial projections,
Mhm.
right? They have been able to understand that what kind of situations may arise,
Mhm.
and which can impact their revenues and their expenses, right? And how they have modeled the whole growth plan in that scenario. So that is something that we very carefully look at in order to understand a perspective of a founder, right? And then third, obviously, is the overall potential, and maybe also partially as to what is the secret sauce that a particular startup may have, right? Secret sauce could be one element which will give that startup a kind of a lead time in the market for about 6 to 9 months, right? This could be some unique process. This could be IP. This could be maybe a very unique team strength that they may have. This could be any specific market segment that they have cracked while others may have not cracked, or whatever. But there has to be one secret sauce which we believe will take business ahead and will give it a clear lead for the next 6 to 9 months at least.
Okay. Satish, when you talk about financials and when you talk about the potential, so there's a parallel debate that's in the market, and it's been for long. The debate between the valuation and the profitability. So
Yeah.
what is your take on this debate?
So I think both of them are important, right? And you have to look at a balance somewhere. But then again, as I said, we as investors are a little bit more conservative in our investment thesis, right? And so I would not advise growth at any cost, right? So I would definitely go for growth which is balanced,
Mhm.
which is a lot more logical,
Mhm.
and so I think I would balance a need to make money. I would balance the need to have certain revenues, because I would not like to support startups which are always dependent on external funding, right?
Mhm.
Because at
Mhm.
some point in time, I believe it kind of takes away a lot of leeway from the founder to be able to explore his own vision, right?
Mhm.
So if a founder can prove himself faster and get a solid, I mean, I'm saying he may not reach break even, that's okay,
Mhm.
but he should be able to at least get sufficient traction going on, with every step. I would not want a startup having $1 billion valuation, but almost minuscule revenues.
Mhm.
That doesn't make sense. He should have at least a considerable level of traction to be able to justify the valuation that he's getting. So that's what I believe, that there has to be a balance between both the points, and we will not prioritize one over the other.
Okay. Satish, so extending and answer questioning more into your answer. So another question is, so ideally, when should a startup should start looking for a funding?
Uh, Again, so I think a startup should start looking at funding when they have kind of got their product market fit, right.
Mhm.
They have gone over their proof of concept stage, the POC stage. They have built initial traction with consumers, right? And now they know that, okay, I found the model, I found my customers, I found my market. I know that this is the kind of revenue pipeline that I'm seeing in for next 1 year or 1.5 years,
Mhm.
and to be able to cater to that revenue pipeline, yes, I need funding. So I think that is for me, that is the ideal stage, that you should now look out for funding, that you already have built a certain viability in the market. You
Mhm.
have built a certain, you have proven that customers need your solution, right? You have gone through that phase of testing and iterating your product till the time it satisfies your customers. And now you need funding because now you know that okay, I'm already established in market A, and now I want to tap into market B and market C, and I know that I can do that. I only need maybe some more team members. I need more foot on the ground or whatever, right? So I think that is the ideal stage that you should now start looking out for funding because one, you will have a lot more confidence from investors who will see that okay, you are not just talking in air. You know, you have done what you're talking about, right? And two, I think it will also give you a very strong negotiation power when it will come to working on the dilution terms, right? So the investor will also be equally interested to invest in you, right? And then you will have a strong negotiation power deciding on how much equity will you be willing to dilute to get how much funding. You know, so I think that is the ideal stage that you should look out for funding.
Okay. So I'll talk about the pandemic COVID-19 situation now. So
Yeah.
do you see as a part of the investment community in India and seeing the culture around the world? So do you see any decrease in funding rounds because of COVID-19 in coming year or so?
So I think yes, to a very large extent, the activity will get muted down, right? Uh, but I think it will also catch up, maybe next 5 to 7 months, because what will happen is uh, investors will become a lot more cautious in kind of evaluating the startups deals, and the startups will also have to kind of get more deeper into presenting the kind of metrics that they have to, right? So now so they will have to show that even if I have achieved a certain growth, how will I be able to sustain that growth over next 12 months, right? How will I be able to buffer such situations if they arise tomorrow again, right? So I think it has been a good, I would say, a learning ground both for investors and entrepreneurs. And I think this will just be a temporary blip. This will not hold back neither the entrepreneurs, neither the investors for a very long while. Yes, things will slow down for next, as I said, for next 6 months. But I think after that, they will again start catching up. And yeah, obviously, of course, without saying the valuation will get impacted, right? Because investors will now be able to maybe ask for a much better valuation than they would have asked before the COVID situation.
Right, right. And Satish, how do you see the government's role in helping the startups through this pandemic? I mean, how much has been done by the government side, and what needs to be done?
Let me put it this way: I think the government still has a lot of learning up to do, right? When it comes to startups and supporting SME structures. So while they have, on one hand, announced a lot of monetary incentives, as part of the COVID package, they also have announced fund of funds, right, to be able to invest into startups and SMEs. But then again, I think it all comes down to the execution, right? Because, for example, even if you look at the startup fund of funds, which is governed by SIDBI, right? It was supposed to be a 10,000 crore fund of funds, right? But till date, I think maybe only about 25% has been able to be deployed. And we're talking about, I think more than 2.5 years have happened since it was announced, right? So I think ultimately it all depends on execution, on the risk aptitude of the government also, because India, unfortunately, is highly, I would say, risk averse, right? Be it the government or be it the regulators, we kind of we do not do innovative things very fast. We are very conservative in that perspective. I mean, if I were to compare our government with, let's say, a government like Singapore, which is far more open to innovations and supporting early stage technology breakthroughs as compared to our country. right? So we are slow, we are conservative, but I think step by step we are reaching there.
Okay. Thank you, Satish. Now I'll come to the last question of this interview. So now I read that you are a hustler yourself, and so
Yeah.
what is your message to the students and to the budding entrepreneurs who want to or who has just started their journey into the startup ecosystem?
Yeah, I think two things which I always say, make your why very clear. Why are you doing this?
Hmm.
So do not do it for fame, do not do it for money, do not do it for success, right? I think one should always fight and live and work for a cause which is much bigger than them, and if you can identify that cause, then I think things will automatically start happening, because now your why will be a lot more clear, right? Because as I kept saying, entrepreneurship is not an easy journey. A lot of times things will not work out the way you thought them to be, right? Your co-founders may leave, your markets may not respond positively, your regulations may not fall in place. But as long as you remember that why did I start to do this, right? And as long as that why is strong and motivating enough, you will continue to do on your path, because entrepreneurship is something which will need a lot of perseverance, right? It will need a lot of persistence on your part, right? And it may look glamorous from outside, but it's a very hard journey, right? And so I think again, you need to have confidence, and you need to be very sure of that I should not compare myself to others. I'm not doing this because my friend has got funding. I'm doing this because I understand that there's a very specific consumer need, and I only want to work to make that consumer happy.
Hmm.
That consumer may be just about 100 customers for all we know, right? So as long as you're just very laser sharp focus on understanding what is the customer problem that you're solving, and just focus on that, right? With all your efforts, with all your attention, and be aware of what's happening, but do not compare with what's happening around you, because then that will put you in a very different frame of mind, right? Just focus on doing your part, on keep learning, on living each day as it comes, and trying to make each day better from your yesterday. So I think that's all what the journey is all about.
Yeah. With that, we'll conclude this interview. Thank you, Satish. Thank you, Satish, for joining us and giving wonderful insights on this whole ecosystem. Thank you.
Sure. All the best. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah.